All right, so let's get started by saying good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So what our lesson we'll be doing this week, the next few days, is we're going to be doing author study. Author study is basically researching an individual or individuals that you enjoy reading. You can either do a few things. You can either do a biography on the individual, you can do a response on the author itself, or you can do a comparison of two different authors. I'm going to show you a couple of authors on here that are kind of similar, but with some differences too. Now, the one thing I want you guys to focus on when we're doing this is a couple things. You have your Chromebooks in front of you. You have a sheet in front of you that has questions. So the one thing you're going to be focusing on as one of your goals is location. Where do I find this information? And we went over this over the last month or so. The next thing I want you to do is to come up with some good questions. What are some of the questions you want to ask about your author? You can either come up with your own. I gave you a couple on your sheet that are going to be there. There's some sheets I'm going to give you later that have some other questions if you want to look at them to ask questions about your author. I'm also going to show you some examples up here on the smartboard about some authors that other people have written about. And the last thing we got to talk about too, and I know this is the one thing I really want to talk about, is where do we find this information? Where on the Chromebook, where in the books do we find this information? We have to give credit where credit is due. So you need to use a citation in order to find it. So if you found a picture of your author, if you found information about your author, you need to document that and tell where you came from. Whether it's in, and don't say Google. I know some of you in the past have written down, I found this in Google. Well, I know you found it in Google, but where in Google did you find it? Google is a search engine, it's not an informational thing, it's basically a search engine where you find information, all right? So I'm going to show you this real quick. I know you guys didn't see this at all, so I'm going to show you real quick. So this is an example of what somebody did as an author study. They did a PowerPoint or a Google slide, and they basically had this, it's kind of neat. So they have a ready, set, go, and they have a nice little caterpillar. If you guys know Eric Carle is shows wonderful illustrations. Let's go read. Oops. As you read Eric Carle books, let's try to answer some of these questions. So when you're reading books, there's always questions in your head, probably. Whether you're reading a mystery, like who did it, who was the person in that who was the person next story. There's always questions in your head, like what's going to happen. What makes the story interesting? So when you're reading a story, is it boring in the beginning? Is it exciting in the middle? Or is it really intense in the end? What makes a good illustration special? What makes his illustration special? Can somebody tell me what makes Eric Carle's pictures special?
They're unique.
They're unique. I like that. Very good. They're unique. I'm just going to go backwards. Let's see. Now this is Eric Carle. Wonderful guy. I met him up in Massachusetts about a couple years ago. He signed autographs for everybody, any Eric Carle fans. Wonderful guy. The line, it took me 2 hours. 2 hours. I was in line for 2 hours just to get this gentleman's autograph, and it was worth it. Because I had to sit down and ask him a lot of questions about how he came up with some of these ideas for his books. And it was wonderful. My daughter got to meet him. Loved it. It was fantastic. So if you ever have a chance up in Massachusetts, not too far, we're about 2 hours away, up in Amherst, he has a museum called the Eric Carle Museum. You can do arts and crafts, you can go see different authors, things like that. So let me show you the next person. You guys know this one right here. Who is this author right here?
Mark Brown.
And raise your hand, who is his main character? Who's his main character in the stories? I'll come back to you. Arthur. So when you guys do this, if you start your slide like this, come up with a slogan or even just put the name up there and have a picture of the author's name. Then make sure you guys put your name on the bottom of this one. This person didn't put it in there. I don't know why, maybe just didn't feel comfortable. And make sure that you show some illustrations. Show where they came from, because we like to know where they came from, why they came. Some experiences they experienced when they were younger. Okay, a couple things like that. Talk about maybe their first book compared to their book now. And if you notice different things. Any questions about this? Any questions? So you guys are going to get some information about your author by locating it, come up with some good questions. If you have any questions, I'm gonna come around the library. You guys, raise your hand. I'll come around and help you. If you have any questions. Any questions? Yes.
What is the first one and the second one?
The first. This one here. So when Mark Brown started writing, this was his first character. This was Arthur before it became Arthur. So he came up with this slogan, he came up with this, and he kind of started over time making this person, then he ended up with this. Or, what we know now. Okay? Are we ready? You guys are dispersed around the library? If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.